Hello, beloved,
Welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast.
where we normalize the magic and sacralize the mundane.
In this podcast, we open up dialogue on metaphysical subjects, self-healing tools, expanding consciousness, and deepening awareness.
We're here to support you in co-creating a life full of healing, meaning, and magic. And the lineup of the season is fire, so make sure to subscribe if you're not already.
I'm your host, Britt, certified self-inquiry and alignment-based smart flow yoga instructor, self-healing song channel, and personal transformation coach, guiding women to gain radical self-awareness in order to reconnect with their most expressive and vibrant self.
And I'm your host, Hanna, a certified astrologer, ordained priestess, and rebirth coach. And I help women integrate past life and ancestral traumas to give birth to their higher self and manifest their wildest dreams into reality.
We're really grateful that you're here.
And together,
We're here to serve as your
Sacred Sister.
Let's dive in.
From the sun may we gather, may the moon dive me deep. Here I call in desires from my heart space I keep. See our spirits as one, I am you and you are me. We come into this space and share our sacred gifts. Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another, from the ashes rise again. Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another, from the ashes rise. Oh, we rise. Oh, again.
So here we are. Hi,
Here we
Hannah.
are. Season 4 is in the books.
Season 4 is in the books. Normally, we are having 13 episodes per season, but this container feels so filled. It feels so complete. It feels so ripe for us to just sit with and reflect on and go over some really, really fun highlights, no?
Yes, let's do it. So we checked out the 3 most popular episodes of season 4, and we're gonna go from number 3 to number 2 to number 1.
Yeah, and
Feeling
then let's
good?
share also what our favorite episodes were, or like the ones that we felt made like a really profound impact on us, and a little bit of maybe what that was like, and we'll see where
Yeah.
it goes.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah, so episode 3, the highlight that we're first going to talk about was the first episode of the entire season, 4.1, where we talked about the paradigm shift with Edward Zadelman.
Yeah, I love that episode. I want to say that was one of my favorite episodes because it is so close to what I'm feeling and, really feeling into shifting the paradigm of how we're living. More in sync with nature, more in sisterhood, brotherhood, conscious community, aligned, just more aligned with Mother Earth. Even like the tiny houses, the more like the sustainable houses, not necessarily tiny, but the more sustainable and in sync with the earth housing. I'm so passionate about that stuff.
Yeah, it's such a profound thing reflecting on the way that this podcast and co-hosting this podcast with you and just doing this in my own life affects my life. Because when I reflect on it, I think literally, I have the greatest job in the world, like to sit and have conversations about things that are at the peak of my interest realm. That's literally how we decipher who is coming on to Sacred Sister Podcast and what we're going to talk about. And like, there's this really beautiful magic that happens whenever we see someone who's living a timeline that is so aligned with something that we would love for ourselves in the future, and to sit and intake their energy even. And just really have someone sitting in front of you that's like, yeah, this is my life. And I'm going to talk to you about everything about it. What do you want to talk about? It's like we can draw that experience into our realm, into our reality. And it can be such a powerful piece in the manifestation process, and just like consciously going about how it is that we choose to live this human experience that we're blessed with.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's so potent in manifestation when we see other people already doing it, already living it. And just knowing, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, yes, it is. And that there are challenges, obviously, but it's possible, and it's there, and people are already doing it.
Yeah.
And I also love how Ed is talking about the challenges and the shadow part as well. And we're really opening up in that episode a lot on integration of the shadows and fears that are going to be coming up. That is a part of the whole process when we are about to make a great shift in our life, a big paradigm shift. We got to integrate some stuff in order to create space for that new manifestation to come to fruition in our lives. So I love what he shares too about that shadow work, of how he specifically does it with the different characters. And that is so cute and potent as well. And, you know, just the way that he shifts from that more doing, busy lifestyle in New York to the more being, relaxed, in sync, conscious lifestyle in Costa Rica.
I love how you worded that just a couple moments ago when you were saying with the manifestation process and the energetic spaciousness within ourselves. It's like, for anyone listening right now, really think of your life. And if you don't feel like things are possible for you, the likelihood is that your internal being, your internal energy is super crammed with all these narratives and all these beliefs and all these opinions and all these things that we naturally intake as human beings. This is being a conscious human. It doesn't always have to be around, you know, big overarching perspectives. Literally, just as we live day to day, we are conscious and we are intaking what's going on around us. But to realize that by gaining awareness over what those pieces are inside of ourselves, that we can actually quantify how much energy it's taking up inside of ourselves, especially the negative stuff. It takes up so much energy. It's actually quite taxing on us to keep that stuff up. So bringing it to the surface and saying like, oh my gosh, I think I'd rather trade this for this. Then we can start, you know, working out with resonant tools and practices and guides in our lives to like slowly learn how to shed that like a literal snake skin. So that we can continue growing, because that is what life is all about. I'm on one today, y'all.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Yes, and it's so true. It's like this, I feel like it's the alchemy of it too, you know, finding the balance piece of transforming the thing, because energy is always there and it's always going to be filled up with something. What are we filling our day up? Is it going to help us to take that next step, or is it keeping us stuck in the past?
Exactly. Yeah. Because then it's not, let me just touch on this and then we'll move on. Because then it's not only about what is stored in our in our being, it's also what we choose to do here. Because a lot of times what we actually choose to do is keep ourselves so busy, and we're societally conditioned to keep ourselves so busy too, because then we don't have time, and then we don't feel like we have space to really assess the stuff that's inside of ourselves. So it's like that's that hamster wheel.
Yes. And Ed is really beautifully talking about how he got off that
Yeah, exactly.
wheel, and that wheel of accomplishments, as he calls it, and really get into like, oh, I can just be. I don't have to always grow. I don't have to always accomplish something new. And so
such
beautiful.
a powerful episode.
So next one, place 2, which episode?
So next one, we're going the next one up, which was the Sacred Plant Medicine episode 4.2 with Ian Michael Hubert.
Powerful.
So freaking dope. That was such a good episode. It didn't go like where I didn't even know. I say that every episode. I didn't even know where it was going to go, but every single piece that we touched on was just so powerful. I think that type of conscious conversation about stigmatized and demonized substances is very, very powerful. And it's a mature conversation that a lot of us need to be having who have had very transformative experiences with it, because psychedelic use in ceremony can be utilized in such a way that it transforms us. It's like a cheat code. It's like a total cheat code for life. And we can figure out so much inside of ourselves, where things come from. We can fortify ourselves, truly see the potentiality of our nature. It's like, and then you look at like the publicized narrative of it, and it's like, what? Y'all were not at the right set and setting, obviously.
Yes. And there are two sides to it, again, to the coin, because we have that beautiful expansion of consciousness that sacred plant medicine can help us with. And I always like to see it almost like it helps us get over the fence and look into the Garden of Eden, look into paradise and see what is out there. But to actually live there in that space, we don't want to get dependent on sacred plant medicine to get us there and to be there and get addicted to it, or like really rely on that to be our main way of having spiritual experiences, because then we are giving away our powers to a substance. And we're actually never really entering the garden through the door, but we're always just like looking over it, over the fence, but we're not actually there and have integrated that into our human experience. So I love how we talk about that too, using it with intention, especially nowadays where sacred plant medicine is getting so popular and so many more people are, doing ayahuasca and Kambo and, animal plant medicine, psychedelics all over the place. And I think it's so important to have that conversation on both sides and just really saying like, yes, the common narrative of psychedelics being harmful and shifting your brain's chemistry and making you crazy is not the most reliant way of looking at it. Because first of all, what is so bad about shifting one's brain's chemistry in the first place? If it makes you feel more positive and more happier and more aware and more conscious in your life, that's a good thing. And second, there's always the intention that is behind that too. Am I just taking that to escape? Am I taking that to party? Am I taking that just for fun? Or am I taking it to like, okay, let me really sit with this healer, with this teacher, and learn and allow myself to be shown a new way of living?
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a great topic. It's one that I still felt very vulnerable for me to even just know that we're going to have an episode on that. It's a topic that I've been wanting to open up about for so long because I share so much of my life on social media between YouTube and Instagram. And yeah, my life has totally transformed through the use of psychedelics, and not even just sacred plant medicines, because I consider MDMA a super, super sacred tool in my kit as well. But yeah, it's important to, I never really hear about psychedelic use being like developing a proclivity to reach for it or like addictive tendencies other than like cannabis or even kratom, which I've not tried that before, but yeah, some things can be more either physically like habitually dependent inducing or chemically.
Yes, and I don't think they're necessarily addicting us physically, but more so like emotionally or mentally addicting. I've definitely heard a good amount of stories by now.
Oh, and I've been there too with weed. I for sure.
Yeah,
for
with
sure been there.
cannabis, it can easily go into a habitual use of it, which it lowers the effects of it. It lowers the potency of each time as well. Like the more that we're doing it, the not as deep the journey is gonna go.
Yeah, it becomes
That
more of
was
a mundane use.
Yeah, it lowers our experience of it. And with cannabis, I found it interesting with Kundalini yoga, that Kundalini yoga actually says before you're going to do Kundalini yoga, don't have any cannabis, because cannabis actually is counter effective to Kundalini yoga. And it's a blocker, a heart blocker, it's considered. And I thought that's very interesting because I feel like I can definitely see that being a heart blocker in regards to like using it habitually, daily, every other day, just like very frequently. And because it makes you escape from your emotions, because you might be angry about something or stressed out, and then cannabis calms you down and mellows, and then it just kind of like takes you away from that actual human experience of let's move through the feelings of what is going on inside. But at the same time, I feel like when it's used intentionally, like the way that I like to use it, it actually takes me deeper into those emotions, and it actually opens up my heart to really feel and sink in and be like, what is it in this moment? But it comes down to intention, because I like to see cannabis as a healer and teacher, and not just as like a thing of like, oh, just something to calm me down.
I love that you mentioned that too, because if you weren't going to, I was going to, because as a super Gemini stellium mind, my first times really using cannabis intentionally were like so insane, because I was able to slow down and really approach different internal processes with exactly the pace that they required, which is a stillness. It's a slowness to really witness what's going on and why and what contributes to it, like the minutia of what makes it up, so that I could then begin breaking it down. So I'd sit there with my voice memos and my journal and my, different colored pens and writing things down and mapping it all out. It's just so fascinating. So yeah.
I'm actually in the process of really tuning into like different strands, and because I've come to realize that different strands take me on different journeys, and I want to start writing more about that. Like really, certain ones take you more into the mind and get a bunch of downloads. Other ones take you more into the body, and you're just feeling like, oh, I just want to move my body. And you're finally getting this crack, or you're getting this like relaxation that has been going on for a long time, that was like deep seated somewhere, but you just know, like cannabis helps to just know how to move and just in the right thing, and just really tune deeply into each muscle and fiber of the body. to create that peace.
Mm-hmm.
And other ones take you more into the soul and you start crying and have this whole emotional healing experience. And other ones take me more into like past lives and astral realms. And it's just, it's fascinating. So it's a lot.
I'd love to hear more about that and like the specific terpenes that you find help with certain things. Oh my gosh, I would love a little guide on that.
I'm in a process of researching the spiritual effects of cannabis and how to
Beautiful.
work
I
with
love
it.
that.
All right, number one. Are we ready? Number
No.
one episode of season 4. The winner. Not too surprising, I feel like.
No, not too surprising. It was 4.9. Alex Zek talking about bodily autonomy and informed consent.
Yeah. And I mean, how relevant is that right now in these times? It's probably the most relevant episode we've ever had on Sacred Sister Podcast. So I'm not surprised that it is the most highlighted in season 4.
Yeah, me too. I feel like as time moves on, because first it was COVID, and then it was how to deal with COVID, and then it was how to resolve COVID, and then it was vaccines, and then now we're moving on from not from vaccines, but now we're able to really witness what's panning out. And it's freaking fascinating. I feel like what we're witnessing in the collective is making it so plain to see that it's almost an even more conversation, even more interesting conversation to talk about the cognitive dissonance that goes on. It's like, wait, we all know like this is what's going on. Why is everyone still going along with this? What is it?
I know.
Insane. It's like we're literally at a point where going like this and saying la 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 la, that's not real, I don't believe you, is like valid. It's like a valid way to move through life. It's like, okay, got it. We don't resonate, and that's okay.
And you know, they're doing a good job in blaming and shaming the people that ask questions, and that's what it comes down to. The people that ask questions, you know, questioning the narrative, being like, let me see the studies, let me actually look at the research, let me actually talk to some other scientists besides the one that are being invited on mainstream. Let's see what they have to say about that. And when you do that, then it's like, oh wow, that's a whole different picture that is being painted there.
Yeah. And why do we only focus on this one? And that's the scary part, because we're being disillusioned to this really like great system that my family definitely supported growing up. And, you know, we all felt safe and supported everything that was going on in all the systems. And we were good, you know, good little people in the collective doing our part.
Little Pisces fish.
Yeah. We were carrying on tradition for the sake of tradition. And now we're at a point where it's just so fascinating, because it's like, well, the things that are not being said or that are being hidden are actually exactly what we need to be talking about, what we need to be paying attention to. And the fact that the way that they speak to and speak about anyone that's outside of the narrative that they are pressing is just so filled with like, just like that we're less, that our opinions don't matter, that we're lying, that we're uninformed, that it's so disrespectful. And it's not conducive to an actual thriving like ecosystem.
And that's, you know,
it's very telling.
And coming from Germany, I mean, literally Germany went through that just recently, kind of recently, with Hitler, the propaganda, the whole reason why the media and TV was in radio, but during Hitler's time, he brought a radio to every person. The whole reason why he did that was because of propaganda, because he was able to spread his narrative through the radio. So that was, and then he created movies out of propaganda together with his people, obviously not just him. And it was literally based on the political agenda of where he wants to lead the country. That's how media was created in the first place. Then after the Second World War, Project Paperclip, literally taking in Nazi scientists, not people that were working on that propaganda, taking them into the country, making them American, and creating this system that we're in now. And it's like spreading throughout the world. And we're like, everyone's like, yeah, oh my gosh, how can you not believe the media? And I'm like, wait, the whole reason, like, look into the origin of the media in the first place. It was not based on it being a truth-telling medium. Television, it's like tell lie vision, right?
Or even just tell the vision of some other person.
Tell the vision of a person, yeah. And it's some of it is good stuff, and you can take it, and it's really helpful, and it's media is not all bad, obviously, and it's great to have media, social media, especially now we can all talk about stuff. We all have our own channel where we can share our visions and truths.
Even here right now, hello. This is a form of media content outpour. Yeah,
which helps with the whole process, because we're not just dependent on the elites media.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, even like when you very first mentioned Hitler, I was like, ooh, that's probably even going to trigger a lot of people, because it's not even necessarily what you're saying. It's that people have they have their own association to Hitler, to what happened, which may or may not be informed and factual and actually what happened. And it's like, sometimes I feel like we are at a place as individuals in a collective with so many perceptions spraying around, that when we hear a word, just even a word that like we have some feeling or emotion or trigger around, we just completely shut out the entire situation. We don't even listen to like what it is that's being said, and even have the spaciousness inside of ourselves to consider it. That is the biggest deal. It's like the biggest thing that we can be doing for ourselves right now is cleansing our own system, so that we have the energetic spaciousness inside of ourselves to truly consider what's going on around ourselves. It's like, it seems like such a foo-foo, like woo thing, but it makes you the most powerful version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah.
When you have clarity.
And I was in the same boat too. Like, I was raised with vaccines, and vaccine was always shown as the number one thing. Like, you don't even have to discuss it. It's like a no-brainer. Like, of course you get a vaccine. Like, it's not even a thing. And the first time I even started questioning vaccine is when I became a mom, and I had to make that decision if I want to vaccinate my daughter. That was the first time I even started questioning it. And then, I could have easily, and I understand everybody that is not in that space, and just, I have that sort of life where you were saying, I create that spaciousness in my life to question things and do research and look deeper into it. But if we keep ourselves busy on the hamster wheel, we have our job, we have a lot of stuff going on. We don't have the time to question. So we'll just keep on going on that narrative that we were raised on.
Keep on keeping on.
And if I did that, I would be totally for vaccines. Like, it would be a no-brainer. It's like of course, like, everybody who thinks differently is stupid. And then it's like, oh, wait, let me actually create that spaciousness to ask questions and really consider the narrative that I was being told. And then we can see, oh my gosh, that's what's really happening.
And it's daunting, right? It's telling. No wonder it's like, for people that don't have like relationships and practices that really help them to feel fulfilled and purpose filled in this life, it's like, oh, so sad without spiritual beliefs or really like a spiritual foundation within the self, so that all the things that are going on outside of ourselves just like fill us with so much morbidity and grief, and just it's just hopeless, it seems, to see the truths of what's happening in the world right now without a spiritual foundation is horrifying, terrifying, so sad.
That's why we have this podcast.
That's why we have this podcast. Fuck yeah, baby. Okay, so we've covered the top 3 episodes of season 4. Now I'm super curious to know what one really stuck out for you. Like, what was super impactful for you?
Well, besides the ones that we've already mentioned, I'm going in between 2. I really loved the shadow work episode with Chris Orozco. And just because it's such an important topic and we love talking about it, and we were both really surprised how we didn't have one episode dedicated to it until this season finally. So that was really fun to talk about. And then the other one was The Ego is Your Guru with Aaron Apke. It's just our latest one, because I really loved how we looked at ego from 2 different facets. And we looked at it from, the original perspective, or the traditional perspective of ego is the thing holding you back. The worst case scenario, you have ego and you're disconnected from your higher self. And then we 2 did a Patreon, I think another hour long, like a whole nother episode on ego, but the positive things on ego and what can happen if we're just connected to the higher self and we forget who we are in this 3D realm, and how important it is to like allow ourselves to create through this beautiful vessel and individual vessel that we are, and know ourselves on that level as well. So
yes, is it not like the most fascinating topic? I've noticed through just having this podcast, like how much I assume that people think the same way I do or believe the same things I do, because we're like all in this realm together. And that's been one of the enlightening aspects of having this podcast, because you realize like, oh my gosh, we've all been yes, we know similar themes, but we've all been educated and informed on them in different ways from different people with different lineages and traditions and pasts and histories and origins, that it's like so helpful for us to really verbalize and get on the similar wavelength and get on the same page about certain things, because I was actually very surprised. It's surprising to me whenever someone starts talking in a way that I feel so similarly with, but also it seems to just be the one side of the coin. And I'm like, oh, but wait, we've got to be moving in both directions in this realm. And it seems like, you might be rooted more deeply into the earth plane. And then, some people you talk to, they're more astrally related. And it's just so fascinating to really open up that dialogue. I feel like we've learned, would you just say that you've learned so much this season and just having this podcast in general?
Oh yeah. And I think it was really fun to just focus on male voices in this Emperor season. That was really cool, because that was kind of a challenge for us too, because it was so easy. We know so many different women that we feel inspired by, and that we're like, oh yay, we have so many already new ones that we want to bring in for season 5. We're super excited about it. But then when we're thinking about Emperor season, okay, how can we shift that a little bit and call in more of the men into this podcast as well? the divine masculine in that sense, that was a little bit of a challenge, right? To like really expand ourselves into that realm. And I really appreciate that because it has opened me up to wonderful sacred brothers that I didn't even know before. Some of them I did, but others I didn't. And it's really, most of them I didn't actually.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun.
Yeah, totally. I completely resonate. I feel like this has been and I anticipated this starting the podcast. I was like, okay, we're not just going to have so many of the people that are in our circle already for the entirety of the podcast. So this was the season that we had the most people that we were freshly being introduced to their work, their sacred missions and the ways that they're moving about in the world, the ways that they're showing up to their communities. And it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know everyone, but it's also been super challenging for me. And I never really realized that before, that I usually am opening up this facet of myself within the spiritual realm and spiritual beliefs and practices usually with women around me. And opening up in this way, like really being fortified inside of myself and just authentically communicating my truths every episode has been so like humbling for me too, because it's been very graceful and it's felt revealing in certain ways. And it has felt so good to have space held for me as well. Like, I feel like one of my biggest episodes talking about space being held for me was the Jacob Deva episode, the sexual polarity beyond gender stereotypes episode. And mostly for personal reasons. And I feel like this is rippling throughout the collective right now as well. So I'll just verbalize a lot of what's moving within why this episode was so activating for me. And I've been having this massive like sexual revelation the last months and the last years, especially, really diving into sacral chakra themes and my own blocks and imbalances and really identifying. I feel like so many people on Sacred Sister podcast who have been listening for a long time remember the very first guest that we had at Corinne Loperfido in 2.1 or 2.2, sexual liberation. That's when I really first started kind of opening up this treasure box that I was too scared to ever lift up. And I've been super transparent the entire time about, the shame elements and the like not allowing myself to ask questions and feeling sexually repressed and just starting to let all that out of the box is so fun. And it's also been like that episode, Sexual Polarity Beyond Gender Stereotypes, was so like triggering for me because I don't generally open up conversation with men in this realm at all, like anything about the sacral center. And it's just really vulnerable for me. So it's been really cool.
In that sense, because we're talking about sexual polarity, but it's not necessarily about sexuality that we're talking about. It's the polarity between feminine and masculine energies, and how beautiful it was, because Jacob Deva was saying how he sees the masculine as being the space holder for all the wild emotions that are moving through the feminine within a relationship. And then he did exactly that for you in that moment. So I feel like it was such a, an actual experience of the knowledge that we just talked about.
The embodied experience, him showing up for me like that. And to piggyback off what you just said, while I know that we weren't talking about sexual acts or anything like that, it's like even just him reflecting back and witnessing us so deeply and acknowledging the beauty that comes from the expressions that naturally are authentically sprouting out of us. Like, I don't usually have things like that said to me by anyone but my husband. So that's kind of what was like so revealing to me that I was uncomfortable being spoken to like that by another man. But then it just gave rise to all these other little programs that's like, well, why? Like, why does that make you uncomfortable? So, it's just been, like I said, a personal piece that I've really been sitting with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah. It's been such a beautiful season. And I want to also say to everyone that we didn't mention, didn't mean that those episodes weren't amazing, because they were too. Like, we had Tom Kubik, where we talked about like really digging in to relationships. He has his own men's circle, and it was really interesting too how he was talking about how men can dive deeper into their feminine energies and into allowing themselves to open up, and how we as women can actually guide our men to feel deeper on that level, and like slowly spiraling them down into the depth of life. That was really cool too. Then we did Aaron Freed, the astrology episode. That's always a lot of fun. I always love talking about astrology.
Yeah. So good.
Of course, Matt. I'm surprised that Matt is not one of the top 3, actually. Matt from the yoga couple was with us talking about healing addictions. That was powerful.
Super, super good. Yeah. Anytime I have to sit with Matt is quite the energetic, amazing, freaking flame in my face type of experience.
That episode we had, like, we didn't have to talk much.
No.
It was like a stream of consciousness flowing through him, and just every question that we even thought about asking him was answered just through the flow.
Yeah, you can really feel it. And then we talked about self-mastery as a natural being with Kadora. That was a really beautiful episode. Oh, so grounding.
Yeah.
So deeply grounding.
I love how he sees everything as like natural, and his quote where he says, we think when we talk to trees, we call it spiritual, but when trees talk to each other, it's natural.
Yeah.
Everything is natural.
I think about that so much weekly, definitely on a weekly basis. I think about that quote specifically because it really helps me show up more fully to my community too. Because it's not so weird unless we make it weird. And when we can really just think about the fact that maybe instead of spirituality being so outside of ourselves, maybe it's actually an aspect of ourselves that's part of the foundation that we maybe have forgotten because we haven't seen it emulated around us in the people that we're so closely surrounded by.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. The shadow work episode with Chris, shaking up reality, prayer, and conscious rap. Oh, with freaking the lyrical wizard Gabriel.
Zen Tempest.
Yes, that was so dope. And the episode was 1 hour and 41 minutes and 11 seconds, which are all my famous numbers.
I've been seeing those numbers these last days, 1s and 4s, and so many times. It's like establishing this new foundation.
Truly. I just realized, as a side note, that I'm nearing the end of my 6th year as far as my spiritual awakening goes. And I think it's so beautiful because now on August 3rd, it's going to be the entering of my 7th year. And I'm literally going from one 7-year cycle of being the student, the passionate learner, the intaker of information. And now I'm with the launch of my new website and these new programs and all kinds of beautiful things that are coming through. I'm stepping more securely into this teacher mode.
Yes.
Feels so good. Those 7-year cycles, baby.
Anyone who is interested to learn more about numerology, by the way, we have a whole episode on numerology.
Season 1. Season 1. So then we talked about the Alex Zek episode, the Jacob David episode, and the Aaron Apke episode. Wow, what a freaking fire season. And the whole purpose of the 4th season was to establish this new earth
to establish like new foundations for this new earth. So we talked about, the paradigm shift to living more alternatively with sacred plant medicine, diving deeper into our relationships, understanding our divine design, healing any addictions that are keeping us from our hero's journey, mastering ourselves as a natural being that we are, doing the shadow work to integrate for radical self-acceptance, combining prayer and conscious rep, and igniting personal power, bodily autonomy, then the sexual polarity beyond gender stereotypes, and that the ego is your guru. It's like, everything we need.
Everything we need. And, the last couple days, Hannah and I have been discussing what to do, because usually we have every season has 13 episodes. And after 4.11, seeing the 4s and 1s again, I told her the other night, I was like, you know what? 411, I feel like it's complete. I feel like we've touched on so much in this season. Hannah is getting closer to baby delivery, and we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up season 4. We have a super, super special guest who's going to be on between season 4 and 5. That's going to be like a special bonus episode that you do not want to miss. And then season 5 is already stacked. I actually looked through our piece, and we have like 16 beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beings that are being reached out to as potential guests for season 5.
And we have so many reaching out to us too to be guests. So we're gonna go through and see who is resonating and works for season 5. So we're really, really excited.
Yes, there's so much growth happening over here within both mine and Hannah's businesses individually. And we want to remind you that with Sacred Sister Podcast, it's her and I. It's these 2 loving pairs of hands and hearts and voices that are coming to you. We are not people with a team just yet. We have my husband, Curtis, who does the audio engineering for these episodes. But other than that, it is her and I that are doing from the ground up all the behind the scenes work and getting it over to you. So we really, really appreciate every single ear, every pair of ears that is listening to every single second of every episode of Sacred Sister Podcast. We really want to extend our gratitude to you. Thank you for being on this journey. Thank you for seeing us as Sacred Sisters and allowing us to hold that beautiful position in your life. We so, so, so appreciate it.
Yes. And we would love to get to know you all on a deeper level as well. And that's why we've created a Patreon actually also this season 4 to really dive deeper into that Sacred Sister community and all of you beautiful listeners to connect with each other, but also connect with us on a personal level. And we can talk more about each of the episodes. And Britt and I have been literally recording another episode pretty much after each of the episodes that we have with our guests. We're bringing our own commentary into it, our private, personal things that we wouldn't say into the open space of the podcast, but just also like a different perspective on the topic that we're talking about. Sometimes we're completely on a different topic because it just kind of sparked it all and went into a whole nother episode pretty much. So I really just want to mention that as well, that is there for you to access, and you can easily access that through our Instagram at Sacred Sister Podcast. Link is in the bio, Patreon, and then we will see you there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, we thank you so much. And we are likely going to be, when is season 5 going to be starting?
We don't know yet. We're going to actually shift our organization a bit around. We want to have a team member for next season. And we're also going to schedule our guests way more ahead than this season has been. So we're going to get some organization and structure in before we're going to dive into the next season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
I feel good.
Stay tuned on Instagram. Stay tuned on Sacred Sister Podcast Instagram for that
and
update.
on the Patreon. We'll be there. We'll see you there.
Beautiful. Well, Miss Hanna, it has been a beautiful episode sitting here with you. I miss just coming on and recording something just you and I. It's literally been like 3 seasons and about 1.5 years since we did this.
Yeah. And the commentaries, which are fun too.
Well, yeah, but those are not on the actual podcast episodes.
Those are not official public. Yeah, it's always nice to talk to you, my sacred sister.
My sacred sister. And here we are at the very last minute of availability. I know that you have to leave again. Love you so much. Have a great rest of your day. And for everyone who's here tuning in till the very last seconds, we love you so much and look forward to seeing you in the next upload.
Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste. Have a great day, beloved.